And this is the middle point of our interview with Robin Sontag, survivor of the zombie apocalypse. By now, she has woken up mere hours after discovering the horrors of the new undead world she woke up in. She's found her first survivors and will now tell us a little bit about the first watchtower they set up.
The castle, as it came to be called, was a house a couple of miles away from blazes that had probably been for sale for years before we moved into it. It was painted salmon and featured architecture that was custom built for whoever it was that lived there. I'm guessing it was a summer house or something like that, because when we moved in, it was completely empty. No objects, no bodies, nothing.
And just to be clear, at that point, it was just the three of you, right?
Well, yes and no. Agatha, because of how old she was going to be bringing as many supplies as she could from Chuck's store to inside the castle. While she did that, Chuck and I were going house to house, checking for any other survivors.
And did you find any?
Nobody except a handful of the undead. Chuck had given Agatha the shotgun, and two of us were shoveling away at any and every zombie that got in our way.
It seems like everything was happening to you kind of quickly. This was all in the same day, right?
It was, and looking back, it's kind of crazy that we got organized so soon. It's probably 4 in the afternoon, and I was looking for survivors only a couple hours after we realized that we were survivors. We flipped a coin, and Chuck and I decided to head north to Schulenburg in his old truck.
I see. What about the other zombies that were on blazes? You fought them, right?
Yeah, they were destroyed. Not much of a problem. Hit them in the head hard enough, and they just didn't get back up. They were slow. We were fast. It was easy.
And Agatha during all this?
We left her at the castle. Blazes was not an area we could have defended easily, so we picked the castle as a rally point. Not a whole lot better, but it's the best we could at such short notice. The castle was further away from any towns and not directly on a road. The roof was long and flat, and we figured we could always climb on top and pull the ladder up as a last resort. We could also see for miles in either direction, so we'd have a lot of warning before fight or flight. There was an old barn that we could use to store stuff inside and a gross-looking pool. But, you know what, I'll get to the pool later. I promise I'll forget my own name before I forget that pool.
And this idea to set up an outpost, this was something that only you thought up on your own?
I mean, it was mostly my idea. I argued anything in a neighborhood, even as sparsely populated as the outlying community, was asking for trouble. I had passed the castle not too far back, suggested it. We all just sort of decided it would work.
I see. So at that point, you've picked your shelter. What happened next? Is that when you started to arm yourself and begin rescuing anyone in outlying towns?
Basically, yeah, that's exactly what happened. We went north, killed a few dozen zombies, rescued 10 people who were holed up in some of the buildings there. Sarah Jameson, Chris Kent, Jorge Mendez, Sam Billings, Eliza Johns, Rose Connor, Pete Talbert, Lisa Fortuna, Renee Freeman, Everett Peterson.
And you just went in and rescued them?
Pretty much. Zombies were still moving slow, and the others inside the buildings hadn't thought of fighting back yet. No real damage had been done to them yet. The ruins people go out and explore now, well, they looked a lot different back then. I suppose I did too, though.
And that was all? You just went from small town to small town, picking up people and having them help in the effort?
That's right. Hell, Louisa was the first one we found, and she ended up with a higher body count than I did. She swung a crowbar like it was a piece of her goddamn arm.
And after that, you just went back to the castle? It seems like you're skipping over parts.
Just unimportant stuff. Why? You think I'm going to go on and on about how mulching the undead with garden tools was fun?
Well, maybe not fun, but yeah. Most accounts I've read before recount expeditions into areas with hundreds of the undead. I mean, I know your story is still kind of early into it, but why are you talking about the places and not about the real important details?
Wow, that's cute. You brought me here to tell you what happened. You tell me to not swear, and then you get mad because I'm not being graphic enough to describe the blood and brains that we paved the streets with. You know, I have a couple stories that might better fit the tone you seem to be looking for. You know, when someone dies, they completely void their vows, right?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean any disrespect.
And then, if they reanimate a day later, they have a day's worth of shit in their pants. You know, even if they didn't moan, there's no way you could get snuck up on. You know, now think about it. I had one of them come at me from behind in Schulenburg that had its throat torn out and couldn't moan. I smelled it, turned around, smashed its head in. It was closer to me at that time than you are now.
I see.
I was saved by...
I guess you were?
So for the record, this modern society I'm credited with is only here today because people poo their pants when they die. So is this recording?
Yeah, it is recording. And
Great. Great. Sorry about that. Don't worry, I'm not upset. It's fine, but I still hope you don't cut out any of my words. There are dozens of stories of your ancestors storming through infested towns, mowing down every slow-moving deadhead in sight. There are stories from the runners at the siege, trying to get us each moving faster than they could in life. All these stories were told from the memories of the people who lived them, correct?
Well, yes, that's about right.
So what good is it for me to repeat them all? Hell, the people were important, no doubt, but if not for places like Blazes or the castle, I have no idea what we would have done. Had I not been driving down a deserted road when the whole world turned crazy, I wouldn't be here. My story is only here because of the car, and because Chuck saved me at his little country store, and because of what happened at the castles, and what we learned when the shufflers became runners. You asked me to tell the story as I experienced it.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I've done.
Well, that's what stuck with me the most. Our antagonists were faceless, blurry monsters. They came and went, but there's nothing special about them. Let's say someday we find other survivors. I'll bet you anything they'll have stories that differ from ours only because of the geography. Do you even understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, yes,
sure,
I think I do.
Sure, you do. Anyway, we killed several dozen zombies. We took 10 people listed and had all the supplies we needed consolidated in the castle before dark. We cleaned ourselves as best we could in a fetid pool when we realized that the water had already been shut off. If you think this documentary needs more graphic details about the kind of grossness I had to put up with, there was a dead raccoon in the pool I found halfway through my bath. You want me to talk about that?
No, that's okay.
Are you
don't.
Sure?
Positive.
Fine, then this seems as good a place as any to stop.
Well, if you say so. I mean, isn't this about the time when...
Oh, right. The next day we divided ourselves into two groups. One went south, the other north, to Shiner. Along the way, we killed several hundred zombies and bumped our numbers up to 300. I could list them if you want, but as far as this next installment goes, there will be 300 people trying to scratch out a life for ourselves in the tiny brewer town of Shiner.